actually, the funny story from Art Basel. So I was hanging with J Cal, and we're talking to Beeple.
Yep.
And for some reason, J Cal was being nice to me, and he said to Beeple, he said, "Do you know who this guy is? This guy is a legend in Silicon Valley." You know, he introduces me.
Yeah.
And then I said to Jason, I'm like, you know, this is Beeple, and who just sold like two $60 million NFTs. I'm like, this guy's a legend too. And without missing a beat, J Cal says, "Well, maybe for the next year." Let your winners ride.
Rain Man David Sack.
And instead, we open source it to the fans, and they've just gone crazy with it.
Love you, besties. Queen of Quinoa. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 58 of the All In podcast. Yes, the podcast. I don't know if you guys have been watching.
I'm drinking, boys. I'm drinking.
Well, it's Friday. We're filming late on a Friday. You can tell from the backyard behind Chamath that it's the evening.
Delicious.
And he's cracked open a little something.
A little delishy poops.
Ooh.
Oh, Bond.
2002, St. Eden.
That's a label of Bond, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Bond St. Eden 2002.
Oh, very nice. Thanks for the invite. I'll be right over. Episode 58 last week, episode 57, peaked at number 40 episodes in the world. So thank you to the fans. We broke 125,000 subscribers on YouTube, and the pods over there are getting 150,000 views. So thank you to the fans. A lot of questions about the All In Summit. I went to see the locations when I was in Miami. We've got the location we want. We're working on dates, and you'll have more information soon about that. So welcome back to the program. With us today, as always, is the Sultan of Science, the Queen of Quinoa himself, David Friedberg, the Rain Man. Yeah, he's definitely back from Art Basel. Of course, he went to Art Basel, and I don't know if he bought any art, but I was on his boat with him, or his rented boat. David Sachs and I were on a boat.
Ooh, a rented boat.
Well,
Wow.
I mean, he hasn't bought one yet, but I think he's moving there. And then, of course, the dictator himself, Chamath Palihapitiya here.
Somali.
With an obnoxiously expensive sweater. Tell us about that.
Yes. Can I?
Everybody wants
What
to know
animal was killed to make that
what
garment?
animal was killed for that horrible Ernie sweater.
This is a collection
Oh, God.
of the foreskins of some white tigers.
No. I'm out. No.
I mean, it is incredibly soft and smooth.
I literally got a complaint.
like foreskins are.
Oh, God. I guess really going in a bad direction, right? I literally got a complaint.
Friedberg and Sachs are like, what are they talking about?
I literally got a complaint on DM about Chamath's
What do they do with the
conspicuous
foreskin?
consumption of his sweaters. And she was like, listen, I don't mean to tell you your business, but I think Chamath is turning off the audience with these sweaters.
Was it an angry mid-level white?
It was a white, but a very extremely successful one. I'll leave it at that. Anyway.
Really?
They were just concerned. They were like, every week, really? We have to go through Chamath's sweater.
Does she pay attention when I put in $700 million a year into climate change? How has she put in that much? With her shitty sweaters?
Okay, listen, enough.
Give him some more wine. Give him some more wine. Someone text Nat.
It's going to be one of those episodes.
Just checking. If we're gonna start moral virtue signaling over here.
All right. Well, we got a lot to cover. I mean, this is just absolutely crazy.
I want to see Chamath finish a glass of wine real quick and then roll into the show. This is going. I mean,
this show is going to go off the rails. I've already lost control of the show. All right, we got to start with inflation and the economy. While Sachs and I were in Miami for Art Basel, there was an absolute panic going on 2-3 in the morning. People checking their Robinhood and Coinbase accounts to figure out how much they had lost in their crypto holdings. But today,
I lost more in the Robinhood stock than I have in the Robinhood app.
That's too soon, bro. That's too soon for me. I'm about to distribute. I'm like, do I distribute now or wait first?
That thing has been a stone sinking to the floor of the ocean.
Well, I mean, it's pretty
never
crazy.
to be found.
No, I mean, listen, $17-18 billion, a pretty great valuation. Right now, I think it's an opportunity for people, but I'll leave it at that. Let's talk about inflation.
But we're not dispensing stock advice.
We're not stock advice, but I'm not selling any of my shares. I'm telling you right now.
Before
Robinhood
I distribute
Square,
my stock and mark my capital gains, I'd like to advocate to be long Robinhood.
Chamath, I'm going to just ask you, don't show up drunk for the next episode. Oh, my Lord. I can't even get through the first story here. Okay. Inflation.
By the way, does this woman even own a cashmere sweater that she has
can we get off of
who is this person? Fuck her.
Please beep that out. God almighty. All right.
What a fucking loser.
Stop
Chamath, I'm glad to hear you're doing something with all those foreskins because we don't want them to go to waste.
God almighty.
What do they do with the foreskins? All those circumcisions? And
I would love for you to just drive here and touch the sweater. I mean, I can't. I'm like,
sounds
this
like
is
something to do on a Friday night. All right. Inflation numbers. This is important, folks. Inflation year over year.
Sorry,
November.
but excuse me. But if you're spending your time working in biotech, working in crypto, and fighting climate change, it's wrong to buy a cashmere sweater. Like all of a sudden, like you also have to look like a homeless fucking the lumberjack.
Point was, is that the goal? We have to start
to look
the
ugly
show
because being ugly is so cool now.
The idea was, do we have to start the show with your fashion choices?
You started with that bullshit statement by this person who better be good looking or well dressed. Otherwise, they have no right to make this claim.
All right. Calm down, Chamath. Let's get to the show.
You insulted his sweater game. That's
I know. It's really, now we know where he's most sensitive.
Honestly, you might as well have called me a
Oh, dude.
You might as well.
Dude. Stop. It's just a sweater comment. And it's just a conspicuous consumption.
Is that what she's really trying to say? Maybe she's trying to call me the P word. No, because you brought it up. Who is it? Out her.
I'm not outing.
Let's cancel her.
We're not going to... Nobody's getting canceled for pointing out that you're talking about $4,000 chinchilla sweaters.
I've never said how much they cost.
We beeped it out.
I've never said how much this sweater costs.
All right, do you own a sweater worth more than $4,000 or not?
Of course I do.
All right, but I rest my case. I rest my case.
I own many, but that's not the point.
Guilty on all charges. Conspicuous consumption. CPI, the past 3 months, today was 6.8 year over year. It's the largest increase since 1982. We're getting back to the post-Jimmy Carter era. And when Reagan got in there, inherited that mess. September was 5.4, October 6.2, November 6.8, points up 0.6 or approximately 10% over October, 1.4% over September. And here's the chart for those of you watching on the YouTube channel. This all started in March of 2021. That was the first month where the CPI rose over 2%. And who was wrong on inflation? Well, the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, called it transitory numerous times over the past 2 years. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, in her Senate confirmation hearing in December of 2020, Yellen said she believed the Fed and Biden admin could take advantage of interest rates being near zero and spend more on stimulus. Economist Paul Krugman thought it was transitory in his op-ed, How Not to Panic About Inflation. That did not age well. Quote, are businesses actually starting to set prices and wages based on the expectation of high future inflation? If they aren't, and my bet is they won't be, then the lesson of 2010 to 2011 will remain, don't panic. My God, he could not have been more wrong. Who was right on inflation? Jamie Dimon in March. I would suspect there is a pretty good chance you're going to see rates going up, and people are starting to worry about that. The American public, specifically Gen Z, has been on top of this issue. 77% of Americans were either somewhere or somewhat or very concerned about inflation back in March. And Gen Z, people aged 18 to 24, had the highest rate of very concerned about inflation at 52%. Larry Summers also got this right. Sachs, what are your thoughts on inflation, which now seems acute and permanent?
Right. Well, it's definitely not transitory. Remember when it was at about 5.1% over the summer that the administration said, no big deal. This is transitory. Don't panic. Then it went to 6.2. Now it's 6.8. Looks like it's headed to 7%. And the real problem here is that these guys, the administration, have not adjusted course in light of this data. What they've tried to do instead is now speciously claim that the same bills that they had written and conceived, the Build Back Better bill, somehow, even though it was conceived at a time that was really deflationary, that somehow this is going to fight inflation. They're essentially repurposing. They're just changing the arguments they're using as opposed to changing their legislative priorities. And just today, we got a report from CBO saying that this Build Back Better bill wasn't going to cost $2 trillion, like the administration said. It's going to cost $5 trillion. and add 3 trillion to the deficit.
Over 10 years, correct?
Over 10 years, if those programs are not sunsetted. So there's a bunch of budgetary gimmicks that were put in the bill. Basically, a lot of the programs would sunset after 1 year or 3 year or 6 years. And so that's the only way they've gotten it to this, $1.9 trillion price tag. The reason why that's a gimmick is because once the programs are created, it will create a special interest or constituency who is now dependent on those programs, and no one's ever going to want to cut them. Milton Friedman famously said that there's nothing quite so permanent as a temporary government program. So that is the game that progressives are playing, is they're going to create the dependency, the constituency who, once they receive the program, is never going to want to give it up. And they're counting on the fact that these programs will not sunset, which means they will cost $5 trillion. And it will add 3 trillion to the deficit. So, the problem is, it'd be one thing if we were in a deflationary environment, if the economy was in the tank, but these guys are continuing to pump more and more stimulus into an economy that has enough. And really, Larry Summers made this point all the way back in February. I think this is worth reading what he said. He said there's a chance that macroeconomic stimulus on a scale closer to World War II levels and normal recession levels were set off inflationary pressures of a kind we have not seen in a generation. He said this in February. Everyone in the administration dismissed him. All the liberal economists that you mentioned basically derided him. He turned out to be exactly right. And he was just saying this about the roughly 2 trillion they passed back in February for COVID stimulus. And, since then they passed 1.2 trillion for infrastructure. And now it's this another 5 trillion for Build Back Better. So, the real problem here is that they are not adjusting course in light of this data that keeps coming out that inflation is a bigger and bigger problem.
So what's the right thing to do in your mind, Sachs? And then we'll go to you, Chamath.
Elon said it, can this bill. We don't need it. This is not what Biden was elected to do. He was elected to provide normalcy, stop the chaos. And he never got a mandate for this kind of, whatever, $10 trillion of tax
we've been wanting to do an infrastructure bill for a long time, but we didn't. That was prior to pumping so much stimulus into the system.
If he had just done the infrastructure bill and not the Build Back Better, it would have been one thing. But this is basically the third hyper stimulatory bill that they've sought to pass. First, they did the COVID release bill at a time when really the economy didn't need that stimulus.
I mean, and then just dovetailing this, and get Chamath involved in this, is the jobs report. November non-farm payrolls increased only 210. They expected it to be 573. So it's a big miss. However, kind of a missed bag because there's over 11 million job openings, and we're now at 4.2% unemployment rate, which is the lowest, which is getting towards the pandemic lows. And this is like before the 2008 financial crisis. Chamath, how do you reconcile inflation along with this crazy, bizarre job situation where people will not go back to work, people are planning on resigning, there continues to be resignations, and there's too many job openings, and people are raising salaries and still can't hire people?
Well, I think we did a pretty good job of unpacking the Great Resignation. I think it was last pod. So, right? Remember, there are 3 structural issues at play in the jobs front. One is that you have this really meaningful under-immigration that's happened because of Trump. The second was you've had a big mismatch between the degreed classes in America and the jobs that they can have for what they think they should earn, meaning you go to school, you get into all this debt, you try to become a teacher or something, and then you realize you can make more at an Amazon warehouse. Crazy.
Strange.
And then the fourth is you have all these boomers with an enormous amount of savings, 30, 40, 50 trillion dollars, who are pulling forward their retirement and also subsidizing their kids. You put it all together, there's less of an incentive to be in the job force unless you pay higher wages. Now, let's just put a pin in that for a second. I think the thing that Sachs talked about is really important, which is that we have to really figure out whether inflation is transitory or it's persistent and it's here. And I just want to bring up, Nick, I'll send you these the Twitter links to this, but Bill Ackman tweeted out these 2 things today, which is that if you...
Fan of the pod.
Brilliant investor, by the way. Great human being, brilliant investor. 2 very specific things. He actually called out something that we also mentioned before, which is that CPI is horribly calculated and it's really imprecise. And if you unpack CPI, there's something...
Price Index.
The Consumer Price Index. There's something in there, a component of it, that's very important, which is called the owner's equivalent rent, right? How much can somebody basically charge rent to other people? The way that they calculate that, which is 30% of the 30% of the calculation, is they just survey a handful of people. The problem is you don't need to survey because the actual exact data is available from single family rentals that report this number. So their survey showed basically a much, much smaller increase than what the actual increase is. And let me just give it. So the largest owners of nationwide single family rentals are reporting a 17% year over year rent increase.
Wow.
The OER that was calculated, quote unquote, by survey in the CPI was 3.5%. If you flow that through, it means that core CPI actually went from 4.9% today to actually 9%. And the CPI print, which was 6.8%, was actually 10.1%. So it just goes to show you we have sources of data that the government is not in a position to collect or measure. We have horribly inaccurate econometric models that we use. You know that phrase sort of shit in, shit out. So unfortunately, you get very bad
garbage in, garbage out.
You get very bad, crappy data. And now all of a sudden we're printing numbers. We're supposed to make policy against those numbers, but the numbers that underlie this decision making is fundamentally flawed. And it's flawed in the wrong direction.
Okay, let's bring Friedberg in. Friedberg, what do you think is happening here vis-a-vis also the creation of companies and entrepreneurship? Because one of the weird things that's occurring is we're starting to hit a record number of LLCs, S Corps, C Corps being created. It seems like a lot of people are becoming freelance nation. Hundreds of thousands of new companies during the pandemic were started.
That is probably one of many places where the water is flowing. When you fill my cup and it shall overfloweth. I was talking to a guy this week who
Jussie Smollett.
No, it's not that.
Jussie Smollett. No.
Yeah, was not that person.
Come on, Chamath.
Yeah.
Put the wine down.
No, let him drink the
Go
wine.
ahead, Friedberg.
And
drink it fast.
This guy has a multi-billion-dollar consumer credit portfolio in subprime, which means he's got a bunch of consumers owe him money. That generally there's going to be a high default rate, and his
no comment.
Not. And he said that this year the portfolio performed beyond like the 1 percentile of the model distribution of what they expected to happen. They had the yield on the portfolio be 40% higher than they thought it would be, because there's so much liquidity in the hands of individuals. And so I think Jason, while you might make the argument that companies and jobs are being created, that is one of many places where you overflow a river and lots of streams start to flow. We're seeing asset bubbles everywhere in NFTs, in crypto, in startups, in new ideas, in home prices, in everything.
Sneakers.
Now, the problem with inflation is, it's a definition. We all use this term and we throw it about, but inflation is really the measure of price going up over a period of time. And generally, you want to have inflation of some amount that allows you to see economic growth and expansion, that allows you to fund the debt that you used to create that growth in the first place. And so without some sort of an inflationary pressure, which is the output of economic growth, you end up being unable to meet your debt obligations. And then things get really ugly. And the system, as it was constructed, because most of these governments and systems like we have today are funded by debt. So, Stan Druckenmiller gave a good interview in Q2. He was kind of on a roadshow, sounding the alarm bells around what was going on. He was saying the market is not speaking right now because basically the Fed kept canceling the market signals with their interest rate policy. And by canceling those market signals, it seemed like we had a free for all at the government level to keep spending. And so I do think that these two are pretty interrelated. The fact that we've kept interest rates low have allowed policymakers to say, you know what, the cost of debt for this government is zero. We can do anything we want. Just like consumers are saying, we can do anything we want. We can buy anything we want. We can spend any way we want. And as a result, we're kind of seeing this, inflationary pressure persist. Now, the problem is if you then raise rates and you can't borrow that money and suddenly people have to start to pay that debt down without economic growth having occurred, the whole system goes bankrupt. So the challenge that the Fed has is how do we raise rates without triggering an economic recession. And if people are now have overspended and are over-levered once again, and rates go up, it's going to get really ugly really fast. And so this is a first derivative balancing act. There's no simple and easy solution, unfortunately. Meanwhile, technology is causing deflationary pressures, which is exactly, maybe what you don't want to see happen when you're trying to realize economic growth. And that's,
The other thing that we talked about is that the Fed basically changed the government changed the rules on the percentage, basically what qualifies as a conforming mortgage. Remember that? And so now that's basically at $1 million. And if you think about it, most Americans, 80 to 90% of their true underlying wealth is their home, to the extent that they've built, a positive net worth. And if you all of a sudden, push up the upper bound on what a conforming mortgage is to $1 million, that effectively means it's roughly about 20%. That effectively means that you're moving people's net worth up by about 4 or 5%.
That's right.
And so if they take that and then they take that money out of their home via a HELOC or an equity line of credit, right? Home equity line of credit. And then, to your point, Friedberg, they spend it or they invest it or they, it could be a real disaster scenario in 5 or 6 years.
By the way,
no, this is more like 1929 kind of crazy.
Yeah. By the way, if you go back remember when we were in like the depths of the market collapsing and everything, when basically the economy shut down with lockdowns when COVID started. And I was speaking to a senior banker at that day, and he told me, look, it's pretty simple what's going to happen. The Fed's going to drop interest rates to 0 and they're going to pump money into the system. Because that's the only way you're going to be able to keep asset prices from collapsing. And we're going to artificially inflate asset prices. And we're going to do it for a long time. Because then people look at the stock market and they say, oh my gosh, stocks are going up. Oh my gosh, revenue is going up. Everything gets inflated by pumping money into the system. And the problem is, while there's a perceived, you keep saying the home price goes up and I keep saying stocks go up. But the purchasing power that arises when the inflation is higher than what those things are going up at indicates economic recession underlying that inflationary bubble. And the circumstance needs to be analyzed, unfortunately, a little bit more deeper than that, which is it's not just about inflation. It's about, have we pumped enough money in to trigger economic growth that we can come to balance where the growth can outpace the inflation? And we're not there.
Well, superimposed on this
because think about it. Sorry, let me just say one simple analogy. Let's say I've got 50 clams. And, there's suddenly a bunch of clams come into the clam market. Now I got 100 clams. And if the number of clams has gone up by 3x, my purchasing power has actually gone down by 1/3. While it might look like I've now got twice as many clams, I can only buy 1/3 as much as I could buy before because there's so many more clams floating around. And that's the problem.
I love clams.
You love clams.
Clams casino, they'll pay clams, or you like them just... All right, listen, I did a little bit of math. I've been watching... the price to sales ratios of some of the top companies. We can pull this up on the screen. And the price to sales of companies, including Zoom, obviously was ridiculous. During the pandemic, that was a pandemic stock. So on top of all of this money being printed into the system, you had the participation of a bunch of stonk traders, and that whole movement buying up meme stocks or others. We had the price sales ratio of Zoom, in other words, the value of the enterprise versus their actual sales, was at 123. It's now at 14.7. Peloton was another one of those at 23, now down to 3x, down 87%. Coinbase, Square also, it drops off pretty significantly here. But you can also, we looked at the peak price to sales, and how much larger it is then. And so some of these are now off 8x, 4x, and then it drops off to 2x, 1x. But it's quite I don't know if you guys are looking at the numbers or if you have any thoughts on this, but it seems like there was a mispricing of certain equities.
And it wasn't a mispricing. The Federal Reserve forced a lot of institutional investors to be out as long dated as possible in buying earnings. Because if you have to remember, it's not just that real rates were effectively 0, but if you wanted to own inflation-protected securities, it was actually a negative yield. So we were destroying people's savings. And there are a lot of institutions that must own some of these inflation-protected assets. So we were already in a negative yield environment. what are those folks supposed to do if they have to fund an 8% return a year to pay the pensions of, good people, firefighters, teachers, it's, you name it, policemen, etc., right? They were forced to invest in the kinds of funds that would then go out further and further out into the future to buy the promise of future cash flows. And when all of a sudden a whole bunch of other assets that they held, which were supposed to be safe, implodes on them, right? Because all of a sudden inflation changes and the front end of the yield curve goes whoop, and all of a sudden all these assets, when yields go up, prices go down. Now the fireman's pension is like, oh my gosh, we just lost all this money we never thought we were going to lose. And we're long all these, crazy tech stocks. And so then they're forced to sell so that their overall exposure goes down. That's called degrossing, okay? And we've been going through a very painful process of this degrossing. Hedge funds are doing it in droves.
Can I ask you a question then, Chamath? I'm sorry to interrupt, but should they not have looked at these multiples and said, you know what? Maybe this one's out of whack and I should buy the ones that are not as out of whack, because this
not
to me
really,
seems...
Not really, because for the last 15 years, if you had... the problem with being a value investor over the last 15 years since 2008 is you were basically a dumpster diver, and you got paid absolutely, you didn't make anything because they misunderstood what value was. Value isn't necessarily things that are cheap. Value is things that are valuable. And over the last 15 or 20 years, what was once a question is now definitive, which is that the things that are valuable tend to be technological, because they're super high margin, they grow really quickly, they compound, they create enormous cash flows at scale. So
agreed.
The point is you couldn't own that stuff. And if you sat on the sidelines, you weren't meeting your 8% hurdle. You were all of a sudden looking at some risk of defaulting on your pension obligations. So this is how this whole cycle brought us to today.
So there was nowhere, what you're saying is, if I can summarize, there was nowhere else for them to put their money. Sachs, price matters though. So is this just bad capital allocation? People weren't thinking about the entry price of their investments? We're giving too much credit?
Well, I think what happened is that you had a liquidity fueled boom going on. So what we've seen over the past 4 or 5 weeks, about the first week in November, the market basically peaked, and at least growth stocks did, and SaaS companies did. If you look kind of November 8th was sort of the beginning of the downturn. And since then, most of these growth stocks are down about 30% plus. Crypto is down now. I mean, it's sliding as we speak, 30, 40% off a peak around the same time. What happened around the first week in November? Well, you had 3 Fed governors come out and make very hawkish statements about the fact that the Fed was going to need to double the speed of its taper, and that you're going to have 2 to 3 rate increases next year. And so basically, we went from being in a low interest rate environment, which has been the case, not only just low interest rate environment, low interest rates with massive stimulus and pumping out of Washington by both the Fed and by Congress. Okay. And so you went from that environment to all of a sudden an environment of now we're expecting to have rate increases, and that's going to suck the liquidity out of the system. The amazing thing that I'm seeing right now is that every investor I know is having the same conversation. It doesn't matter whether you're a SaaS investor or a real estate investor or a crypto investor. They're all having the same conversation, which is, what are interest rates going to do? How much liquidity is that going to suck out of the system? And how much of the boom that we've experienced over the last couple of years has been because of this unnatural liquidity that's been pumped into the system? And so I've never seen it be the case that investors across every asset category are having that macro conversation, as opposed to talking about like micro stuff, right? Like
the specific company, the earnings, exactly. The product, who they're beating, the market share.
Nobody's talking about that. Like, what building do I buy, or what SaaS company do I invest in? It's all about what is happening in the macro picture. And this is where I think what Biden is doing is so unbelievably off base. Is, okay, look, he didn't start $1 trillion deficits. That happened to the previous president. I'm not saying that was good, but now what we have is a situation here of the Fed is getting extremely hawkish, of tightening. We're seeing inflation now out of control, and yet there's been no adjustment whatsoever on a policy basis.
Yeah.
Can we just say
nobody's
the ugly
hitting
truth?
The brakes? Right.
Wait, let's just call a spade at this point, because I think we can. I think Biden is, and will ever be a really moderate, down the middle centrist. I don't think there's ever been an extreme bone in that man's body. He has always come off at, the word that I think when I've always thought of Biden, even now, is equanimity. The guy is a really down the middle person. He's not an extreme individual. I think that's the only kind of personality, by the way, that could have thrived for 8 years as a VP with Obama and had been in every room in every meeting. The problem, Sachs, and tell me if you think this is totally off base, is that there was a head fake after he won the presidency where there was this fake lurch to the progressive left. And it turned out that it was a complete head fake because that whole cohort of people just totally jumped the shark. Because all that rhetoric then unfortunately turned out to be not worth much. It started to blow up in their face in every single election that's happened since then, at the local level in cities, at the state level in places like Virginia. And in the middle of all of that, I actually think what happened was that faction tried to push an extremely aggressive legislative agenda to paint Biden as the next Roosevelt, which maybe he didn't even have the desire to be, because I think that he seems a very low ego kind of person. And now we're actually realizing, oh my gosh, this makes no sense. And so the part of why I think the markets are kind of like hand-wringing is you would expect at this point the federal bureaucracy to actually step in. But I think there's like a real lack of confidence because, for example, today, when there's a CPI print of somewhere between 7 and 10%, the only Democratic sounding, the talking point was one of the squad proposing a 4-day work week.
I mean,
right.
That is insane. That's
guys, like you're in crazy debt and you're like, you know what we should do?
Guys.
We should spend more money and work less.
When the CBO says we're about to go $3 more trillion into debt, the solution isn't to I actually think if you want to work less. Maybe you're lucky and your boomer parents can give you money, but there's a bunch of us like me who had to grind. I didn't have anybody to fall back on. And if you all of a sudden passed a law that said, hey, Chamath, you can only work 4 days a week, I would be really angry because you're depriving me of 20% more of a chance to beat all those other soft candy asses that went to all those fancy schools that weren't willing to work.
Yeah, ignore. That's the stupidest suggestion.
Let me work.
So I think this proposal that came out to basically this was a new proposal that they were going to limit the work week to 4 days a week. Wouldn't let people work 5 days a week. The reason why it's a bad idea in general, but it's a particularly sort of a brain dead idea to propose during a sort of this inflationary period, because again, inflation is caused by too much money chasing too few goods. Well, so you have a demand component from the pumping and the stimulus, but you also have the supply component, which is we don't have enough goods and services. Why? Because we've been, passing out these stimmy checks that disincentivize people from working. We have problems with the ports. We have these COVID restrictions that have all gotten in the way.
Restaurants are closing 3 days a week because they can't find servers.
So we've had a shortage of goods and services. So the last thing we need is a 20% reduction in the number of work days and work hours that are available. So it just shows like how out of touch these progressives are. But look, to Chamath, to your point about Biden, I don't know, exactly what's in Biden's heart. To me, it doesn't really matter. I actually think he's pretty liberal. He's not all the way out to where, AOC is. Fine, fair enough. But look, at the end of the day, I think, this idea of Biden being a moderate, moderate is as moderate does. He has not governed like a moderate, whether that's because, this moderate thing was just a marketing shtick on his part and he's actually more liberal, or whether he's been co-opted and taken over by the progressives. I don't really care what the reason is. The fact of the matter is he is not governed like a moderate.
At least we pull back the spend, David. I mean, the spend was going to be...
No, we have not pulled back the spend.
Well, no. The original bill was going to be two or three times.
We just we put the bullet in the chamber and loaded it for Manchin. This bill is not going to happen, David, with a $3 trillion deficit increase.
I hope not. I mean, but the point is that, look, if people like us don't speak up and say this is a reckless, foolish, crazy... Yes, exactly. Then
you can only fly the plane so fast before the wings come off. This is too much speed for the airframe. Let's go to a clip of our friend Elon.
This is a $5 trillion bill.
Let's go to this clip of Elon talking about capital allocation. It's like 30 seconds, and then Friedberg, I'd like you to comment on the other side. Let's go.
At a certain point, really what you're doing is capital allocation. So it's not money for personal expenditures. It's what you're doing is capital allocation. And it does not make sense to take the job of capital allocation away from people who have demonstrated great skill in capital allocation and give it to an entity that has demonstrated very poor skill in capital allocation, which is the government.
Yeah, Friedberg, your thoughts on Elon's?
I've said it in the past.
This was at a Wall Street Journal conference, by the way.
You can think of a government or a nonprofit or a corporation as an organism, as a living organism, and each living organism wants to eat and grow. And there is no such thing as an organism that says over time, I want to shrink and shrivel away and die. So the organizing principle of the people in the government is to do more for their constituents, for their owners, which are what they believe to be the taxpayers or their the folks that elected them to office. The politicians themselves, I would argue, are more actors in the Ouija board of behavior that's going on here. And, less kind of, the mental designer of a system that they're trying to use to infiltrate change in the world individually and conquer and gain individual power. There may be some degree of motivation there, but I think largely it's more about the fact that that organism, that government, wants to grow, wants to spend more, wants to do more over time, not less. And this is true of any business. Every business wants to grow. If you're not growing, you're dying. And every nonprofit, there's no such thing as a nonprofit that says, let's not fundraise and let's spend all our money and then shut down. And so I just think as much as we want to kind of sit here and rationalize a way to better politicians that are going to better serve us, that are going to think smarter, the reality is every government, every, institution of government in the history of humankind has tried to grow. And eventually they cycle back. The United States, like I said last year, maybe kind of going out with a little bit of a whimper, less of a bang. And that's going to, be a function of the devaluation of currency or, having less of a place in the global stage, and so on. But I think Elon's right. He feels, and many people in business feel like they're in competition with the government, for capital. And that capital is the only difference is that the government can force that capital, can force that revenue, and no business can. And so they've got an unfair advantage in that stage of playing for capital. And this is where Bitcoin feels to a lot of people like a great equalizer. And I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist or anything, but I think that's where the appeal arises, which is as Jefferson said, like every generation needs a revolution. And I think that this is the revolution that folks are looking for, which is how do we get this big monopolistic player off the playing field to let us do what we want to do?
Well, it's so easy. All Biden has to do is what he was elected to. He never had a mandate for this $10 trillion of spending. The guy ran a basement campaign. He was elected to not be Trump. Okay. He was elected to stop the chaos, not to engage this $10 trillion progressive agenda. Elon, I think, made a really good point about the capital allocation there. People think, okay, Elon's got all this money, so he must be enjoying this incredible lifestyle. Look, he's right that once you have that much money, you can't spend it all on personal consumption. You invest it. And so the question is, who's going to make that investment? Who's going to be better at it, Elon or the federal government? We know Elon is better at it. He creates incredible innovations. He's going to put people on Mars. He can do incredible things with that capital, whereas the government just squanders it. There's Elon had another really good. I think Elon actually understands economics at a macro level really well. He had a really good. There's an equally good snippet of him on the Rogan show, called the Horn of Plenty. Yeah, the Horn of Plenty, where he says, "Look, there's a lot of people out there who think the economy is just like this Horn of Plenty that produces all these goods, and the goods just magically appear no matter what we do." Okay, and so if some people have more goods than others, it's just because they stole them from the Horn of Plenty. What he said is, no, this is not the way the economy works. People actually have to make the stuff. If people don't make the stuff, there is no stuff. Okay. The stuff doesn't just magically appear. And the way the stuff gets made is you have people making smart capital allocation decisions and engaging in hard work. And that's what actually produces the stuff. And it's not a zero sum game. So if you think about this agenda that we have in Washington, it really flips this on its head. It's doing everything it can to stop the production of the stuff, whether it's the stimmy checks or the COVID lockdowns or,
bonus
or
unemployment, extending
or just confiscating the earnings of people so that they can spend it on whatever they want.
Tax,
right.
Whatever,
exactly. Yeah. It's actually putting constraints on the production, on the supply of this stuff. And then meanwhile, it's just printing all this money. So then we wonder, where's the inflation come from? Well, obviously it's coming from printing more money for fewer goods. That's basically the problem with the agenda we have in Washington right now.
The increase in the deficit is just getting stunning. If you look back on the 5 or 6 last presidents, Reagan, 142% increase. He got us up to 1.42 trillion. He had to obviously combat what happened under Jimmy Carter. George H.W. Bush, 36% increase. President Bill Clinton, a 1% decrease. The first time we've had a surplus in a long time. And then Bush II, 57% increase.
No, the economic results under Bill Clinton were amazing. I've talked about it on the show before. I was just about
to say, he's a goat.
Yeah, but I mean, at the time, what was very interesting is politicians actually took this issue of balancing the budget very seriously.
Really seriously.
Deadly seriously, and thinking about how we would pay for things. And now we don't seem to think about who is going to pay for these things.
Yes.
Which is going to screw our children.
Okay, so you have to remember that Bill Clinton was the president who said the era of big government is over. And when he left office, he actually bragged about reducing the federal government's share of the economy from 22% to 18.5%. You would never hear a Democratic president.
It'll never happen again.
You'll never hear a Democratic president. Well, first of all, they wouldn't do it. But second, they wouldn't brag about it. You know, you can't even say something like that.
They would be ashamed at balancing.
Let me ask you, do you think a Republican president would? Because I'm not convinced that any party matters at this point. It feels to me like the incentive structure is such that the individuals who are representing constituents who get them elected and they can pass more dollars back to those constituents drives a systemic model of growth for the government. And therefore, the government is competing as a monopoly on the field for capital.
Yeah, and look, I think you got a point.
You thought Trump was going to be this guy, and Trump came in, and he ended up spending more. And I recognize there were extenuating circumstances and so on, but I thought he was going to go in. I thought the premise was blow up the government, cut all this nonsense, and the deficit kind of shot up.
You're right that Republicans have a very spotty record on government spending, and we did have $1 trillion deficits pre-COVID under Trump, and that was not good. But what Biden is doing now in the face of inflation is worse. And look, I mean, historically, the only times that you really have, it seems like fiscal responsibility is when you actually have the best track records have been when you have Democratic presidents or Republican Congresses, and the Republicans suddenly find their principles on spending when there's a Democrat in the White House. You're right that when Trump was in office and had Congress, and George W. Bush had Congress, the Republicans spent a lot of money too. So it's absolutely a bipartisan problem. But what's happening now in Washington is under Biden is unprecedented. It is a breaking of the bank. They're talking about minting $1 trillion coins. So yes, it was a problem under Republicans, but this is even worse. And here's another thing is the Fed is now saying that they're projecting 2 to 3 rate increases next year. So let's call that 75 basis points. Multiply that by the close to 30 trillion of government debt that you're talking about, Jason. That's about 150 billion a year of interest payments on the debt of debt service. Okay, 150 billion
extra.
That doesn't exist today.
It's not fixed rate, by the way. That's right.
It's all short-term rates. It's all short-term rates because yes. So you're looking at 150 billion of incremental debt service costs, right? So multiply that over 10 years. That's 1.5 trillion over 10 years. That's your Build Back Better right there. Where is this money for Build Back Better going to come from when we have 1.5 trillion of increased interest rate costs starting next year?
And how do we get the cycle of people wanting to go back to work and be productive? It feels to me like this could be
raise wages,
which is what's happening, but people are still not going back to work. Have you been watching the people Jason, are offering $70,000 to be a manager of a Taco Bell, and people won't take the job?
Well, then you offer $75,000.
I still don't think they fill it.
No, I think that model's dead. I think low cost labor is inevitably
it's not low cost if they're making $75,000. Well, I mean, I think
in order for people to buy the product, I don't think Taco Bell is going to sell burritos if they cost $6. So if they're going to have to raise labor costs, people aren't going to be buying Taco Bell. They're going to go somewhere else. So the low cost model of consumerism in the United States, which has been a stronghold for our economy for 100 years at this point, may be coming to an end, or it will accelerate the implementation of automation across that sector of the economy.
Yeah, that's what's happening.
I think that's more likely.
That's more likely.
Yeah.
By the way, if you read the press release for the 4 days a week
I'd pay $4 for a Taco Bell burrito, though.
Gobbledygook. In the 4 days a week thing, it said workers for far too long have been forced to work very long hours and not get paid. And
wait, they were not paid?
And so the idea is just like, opt out. But then if you opt out, you'll make even less.
Yeah.
In a moment where you can actually make more.
Yeah.
These idiots who are coming up with these ideas.
The Chinese must be
licking their chops
at these buy-outs, wrecking the American economy.
Oh my God!
But in terms of,
they don't need to do anything. We're destroying it from the inside.
Yeah, exactly. So just in terms of what we should do here, I actually think there's a lot of strength in the economy right now. It's not all negative. I mean, the unemployment rate is down to 4.5%. The labor participation rate. Yeah, it's quite low. I mean, it was 3.5% before COVID, so we're getting close to where we were before COVID. The labor participation rate's not great. I think it's like 61%.
Salaries
it was 63. It was 63% before COVID. So we need to get more people working. We could do that by ending the stimmy checks. Okay. But the most important thing we could do right now is Manchin would do Biden the biggest favor by just putting a bullet in this Build Back Better plan, because I actually think there'd be a massive relief rally and the economy would take off like a rocket next year if you just got government out of the way. They have printed enough. The best thing that could happen is they stop this pumping and stimulus. And then the Fed doesn't have to raise rates as aggressively next year. And we could let things have more of a soft landing as opposed to this sudden austerity, which is whipsawing the economy.
So just slow the plane down and then maybe break this bill into 20 component parts and just try to get a couple of things done. He spent all the money. It's spent. I mean, this is a bender of all benders. And if people are refusing to go back to work, we're going to have to, we talked about this in the last episode, we're going to have to think about letting people immigrate.
Jason, I think it's a generalization to say people refuse to go back to work. I think the jobs that people had when their options open up to them, may not be jobs they want to go back to.
Correct. I agree.
I think that there's going to be a larger, significant growth in a services economy that didn't exist before. Think about how many yoga instructors there are today that didn't exist 20 years ago. How many, people doing hair. YouTube creators, the creator economy alone, right? Like Hollywood no longer has a monopoly on content. And people are spending more time consuming content than ever before. So, there's a services economy that I don't think we really predicted or modeled. And we all assume, oh my God, no one's going back to work. It's like, guess what? People are spending money and they're going to spend money on new stuff. And these new industries are going to emerge. We know creators and those creators are going to create jobs around them. One amazing creator will hire 100 people to, staff his videos and make his music and edit his stuff and, run his business and so on. Like, it's just the way that the economy shifts. There's been a moment here that is like a Cambrian explosion of new species of industry, where, this meteorite of COVID came and hit planet Earth. There was an eradication of the old species, minimum wage jobs for crappy labor work that people don't want to do. And all of a sudden, the sun came out and new stuff is emerging and new life forms are emerging, new jobs are emerging. And I think we're going through a really ugly transitory period. But I think, like Zach said, it could be really great on the other side. And there's also, there's one more argument to be made, which is our friend Brad Gerstner sent me a note today saying, I know you guys are going to rant on your All-In pod today about inflation. I want to remind you about the deflationary effect of technology, and it is really being felt in the economy. I think we all see it, how software alone can reduce the operating cost and the labor cost of businesses, drive up margins, increase growth. And so, there's a number of tailwinds here. But I think Sachs is right. There's a masking going on with respect to the capital that's just being bandied about right now. And it's a risky, nasty kind of, maelstrom of a sea we're trying to cross right now.
I want to point out two positive things to build on Sachs's positivity. Number one, I don't know if you guys are following Omicron in the UK. They have record cases right now, but deaths, and they're also done great with the vaccine, obviously. Small country with a lot of resources. So they're hitting record cases for this last cycle, but deaths and hospitalizations are down. And they say upward of 25, 50% is now moved to Omicron. And it seems like that this could be the end game, maybe. And
did you ever see the end of, what was it, Outbreak, where they like dropped that bomb and it was like the massive bomb that takes all the air out of the room and like shocks everything. And then they're like, okay, it's over. There could be this thing happening where Omicron is the air bomb that gets dropped, clears the room, and then it's all over, Well, and then here's the other thing. We don't know.
I'm seeing the salaries going up faster than inflation. People are raising people's salaries, in double digits to try to get them to come to these jobs. So the people who are choosing to go back to work, and people are eventually choosing that and switching jobs, to Chamath's point, I think they're going to be making more money, and they're going to be more resilient, and they are going to be a little more empowered. And that could end up being a great thing. And then finally, in terms of technology, I have one robotic company that serves coffee, and they had a record week.
Pump it.
I'm not going to pump it, but I don't want to say the name.
Pump it.
No. They broke $11,000 in people ordering from a robotic coffee machine. Previously, the record was like $7,000 a week. So people are getting used.
Tell your stupid lady friend I have an $11,000 sweater.
Oh, no. Please. Stop it. All right, listen, I don't know if you guys saw this better.com layoffs viral video, but
Can you break this down, J-Cal? I was not following this.
All right, very simple. There's a company called better.com. They get rid of origination fees or whatever and commissions. They try to get you faster mortgages, insurance, whatever. They were going to SPAC. SoftBank was going to put in $1.5 billion in the pipe. Everything was going according to plan.
SoftBank was already in the company, right? So they were trying to get their own company out.
Yeah.
Right.
So obviously the market corrects. Everybody always asks us as a group, what happens when the market corrects? Well, here you're about to see it. This guy decides I got to cut 10% of the company. Instead of having his managers go to each group and have a logical, small discussion about how they're going to correct things and maybe some sort of thoughtful process, he decides he's going to get on Zoom to the entire 900 people who are fired. And in a very bizarre way.
Sorry, 900 people were fired?
900 people.
Zoom.
Over Zoom.
But how big is this company?
10,000 employees. And he says to them, that the last time I had to do this, I laid people off. I cried, and I'm going to try to do better this time. But if you are on this call, effective immediately, you're fired. It's just another one of these crazy clips we have to respond to.
I want to see it.
30 seconds. Chamath, give me your thoughts on the other side.
Thank you for joining. I come to you with not great news. The market has changed, as you know, and we have to move with it in order to survive so that hopefully we can continue to thrive and deliver on a mission. This isn't news that you're going to want to hear, but ultimately it was my decision and I wanted you to hear from me. It's been a really, really challenging decision to make. This is the second time in my career I'm doing this, and I do not want to do this. The last time I did it, I cried. This time I hope to be stronger.
Okay, and then here's the second clip where he basically tells everybody over Zoom that you're not going to be able to log in and you got 2 weeks severance, 3 weeks before, a month severance, and it's like 3 weeks before Christmas. Go ahead.
We are laying off about 15% of the company for a number of reasons. The market, efficiency, and performances and productivity. If you're on this call, you are part of the unlucky group.
You, dude.
That is being laid off. Your employment here is terminated effective immediately.
Are you kidding me?
What does this mean for what's next? You're going to get an email from HR, askhr@better.com, to your personal email address regarding the details of your severance and your benefits. For all U.S. employees, we're providing 4 weeks of severance, 1 month of full benefits, and 2 months of COBRA, for which we will pay the premium. So 3 months total benefits if you elect for COBRA.
All right. We've all operated business before. Does anybody?
I've had to do layoffs before. It is the most fucking brutal thing.
Yeah. This is the exact wrong way to do it, though.
Terrible. I remember at AOL.
There's no right way to do it, but I think the question with this guy is to examine, the growth incentive that got him to this point. He took SoftBank money. SoftBank, as we all know, creates a very strong incentive and capitalizes businesses to go after kind of ultra, perhaps unnatural growth. And there's almost always shocks that occur after they do that. And the circumstance, I think, could have been avoided. Maybe he built a business a little more steady, but then his valuation would have been lower and he wouldn't have been able to access as much capital. And so, unfortunately, the loss of jobs is the cost of capital with these ultra high growth incentives that are kind of being structurally built into the fundraising rounds in these later stage deals lately. I don't know if you guys agree, but it's just
Sachs and then Chamath.
Okay, so
how would you do this, Sachs? You're an operator.
Yeah, so I've had to lay people off before, but never in this era of COVID and remote work. So the question, and look, it is miserable, and I think that it is the right thing to do for him to take responsibility if this restructuring was caused by a strategy that was, overly prioritized growth. I think he could say something like, look, this is my fault, the company's fault, not your fault. So I think he could have.
Exactly.
I think he could have couched that. I think he could have taken responsibility. That being said, I don't think he owed the groveling apology that he was forced to make because, look, here's the thing. How do you lay 900 people off in this era of remote work? I mean, they're all working from home. There's no office for them to go into where you can sit them down one-on-one like a human, like you used to be able to do, and have a conversation. So they are laying people off by Zoom now, and it's unfortunate, but I think it's just this new world that we're in, and I don't know that there's a much better way to do this. I think the words could have been better. Maybe it could have been more organized. But how do you lay off people who are working from home?
I have an idea, but Chamath, let me let you go first. Any thoughts you want to add? And I'll tell you how I would have done it.
I remember when I had to do my first layoff at AOL.
A lot of them there.
and there was a lot of those rifts. And I remember the first one, I was in my early to mid 20s as a manager. And we had 3 or 4 people or whatever. And I remember distinctly that AOL had this policy at the time because I guess they had maybe like tens of thousands of people, employees, lots of call center as an example. And they've had to have rifts before. They would have security guards, and there would be a security guard outside the meeting room where you would bring somebody in and talk to them. And I just remember being seared in my mind because never having done it before, I was like sweating profusely, really nervous. I didn't know what to say. I felt really bad. I felt very guilty. And then you learn how to do these things, and there is a very humane way to try to do these things. It's never the best thing to do, but you try to give people a fair exit package and all of these things. Let me put that aside because I think what Friedberg said is so good and so important. The root cause of why this is here, as far as I can tell, is not a company that doesn't have consumer demand. It's a company that may have been mismanaged for growth to meet the consumer demand because of too much money. And this is a thing that is an avoidable mistake. And this is where you have to figure out how much you want to basically swim with the tide and be like everybody else, which is to be able to go to the dinner party, say I raised X amount of dollars at Y valuation and just keep ticking it up and ticking it up. Or to actually have the discipline to hit the brakes and say, I don't need it. I don't know what to do with it. I'm not ready to take it. I need to figure out my business model. Those are two different kinds of decisions. There's going to be layoffs in both. But if he actually came at it from the perspective of, listen, guys, we've been growing methodically and there's just been a structural change. Or for example, rates are ticking up. There's a lot less demand and we have to right size the company. That's a very different statement than maybe we overgrew because we were drunk on free money. And now we have to realize that we actually have too much capacity for the demand that actually exists. And those are avoidable mistakes, frankly.
Yeah, I've had to do layoffs. Obviously, it's not fun. This was executed terribly. To your point, Sachs, I think a much easier way to do this would have been to go to the leaders in each group and say, hey, listen, we're going to have to do these layoffs. It's going to affect different groups. So you take your group into a subset of Zoom. You explain to those people and you do it. Hey, listen, we're reorganizing because of these reasons. Chamath had some good language there. Other people did. But this idea of mass firing 900 people with one person, that's the critical error here. It was inhuman.
That's a little megalomaniacal. That's like a little insane. It was almost
like he wanted to talk about himself in this as opposed to taking responsibility. To unpack it, obviously, when something like this happens, then the floodgates open. Forbes got a 2020 email leak where he called his own employees dumb dolphins. In the email that's been leaked since this came out, you are, cap locks on, too damn slow. You are a bunch of dumb dolphins, and dumb dolphins get caught in nets and eaten by sharks. So stop it. Cap locks on. Stop it right now. You are embarrassing me.
This is the pile on. This is the pile on.
I know, but this person clearly is a little... Yeah.
No, for 24 hours, he's the incarnation of evil in the eyes of the media, and then they're going to move on to a new person in a couple of days. So, I mean, look, I think...
Have you ever written that to employees? No. Do we have an email coming out from Yammer?
I wrote all caps. Guys, I quit the group chat for a day.
You did rage quit?
I all caps you guys this week.
That's hilarious. Rage quit.
But can I connect with something Chamath said about okay, so that you have this larger question about did the company grow too fast, and are founders asking the right questions about growing too fast? Let me connect that with the first conversation we had about the macroeconomic situation. I think, every startup board right now probably needs to be having a conversation about the macro picture, because there's one of two possibilities happening right now. We've already seen in the past 5 weeks, we've seen 30 to 40% correction in the public markets for growth stocks and SaaS companies. That is absolutely going to trickle down to venture valuations. I think it already has. If you look at the crossover guys like Tiger and Coatue and D1, I guarantee you, they're all updating their models, their valuation models based on the public comps. So, we are now in a slightly different environment. I don't know that 100 times the ARR is the metric anymore as it was, say 2 months ago. I don't know where the new metric is going to land. We're going to have to see some deals get done post correction, but we could be in a very different environment here. And I think there's two possibilities. Either the rate increases that are coming next year are now priced in, and we're going to go back into, a mode of going back up and to the right. And especially, I think if this BBB bill gets killed, we'll go back and up to the right. Or this could be the beginning of a protracted slide as, more and more market participants realize that we're in a very different kind of environment. And we may not have seen the bottom yet.
If you were running a company, Sachs, and you had just raised that $100 million crazy round at 100 times, what do you do? If you were running a SaaS company, what would you do?
I just had this conversation with one of our SaaS founders. They just closed a monster round at a great valuation, and literally a few weeks ago. And they have some interest for more people wanting to get into the round. And I just pointed out, listen, we may be going into a very different environment, and I think the company is worth the valuation we got. But, if you just look at the public comps, valuations are down 30, 40%. So if we were to take more money into the round at the same valuation, that's kind of a good deal for the company. And it gives us more runway, gives us more insurance.
Secure the bag, no downside.
So those are the types of conversations I think it's prudent to be having right now. And frankly, there's a lot of investors and certainly a lot of founders who never lived through the dot-com crash and down markets, and they don't know how bad it can get. They've only seen good times.
Right? What, 18 months of nuclear winter? No checks being written?
Yeah. I mean,
whatever you got, whatever food you have in the cupboard is what you're eating for the next 18 months. In 2000
to 2003, you had 3 years of nuclear winter pretty much. But, in 2008, 2009, it was about 18 months of nuclear winter. I mean, it's just...
It wasn't even that cold, but yeah.
You want to hear a great 2008, 2009 fundraising story?
Sure.
I'm at Facebook. Market just implodes. And we decide that we need to raise some insurance, just a little, insurance policy, a little money, a little downside protection. And I remember that we were having all these conversations with TCV, and they're a really good firm, very smart. And basically, we told them what the price was. I think it was like $7 billion pre, right? Like $7 billion. We want to raise $500 million. Just please, just do it. We just need a little margin of safety. And they came back with their model and they updated their model, David, to your point, and they came back at like 6.8 or 6.7, something like that, 6.5. And we were like, my God, what the fuck is this? Like, this is not 7. We just want to raise some money at 7. And 7 was a down round because we had already taken money from Microsoft at 15 billion. No, at 15. So we had thought we had hit the jackpot when a year earlier, we raised $249 million from Microsoft. Now, by the way, why 249? Because at 250 million, Ballmer would have to go to the board. So he goes 1 million under the number where Ballmer can sign the check himself. So we get Ballmer in for 249 at 15 billion. A year later, the great financial crisis happens. We are raising money. We tell TCV, please just give us 500 million at 7 or 8, some number. They come in 700 million under because their model says whatever. And I will never forget this. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was on the phone, and I think it was with like Ted Elliott, our general counsel at the time. And we got a term sheet from a certain person, Yuri Milner at DST. Whoa. And Yuri came in. He throws the high heater at like 8.5 or 9. No board seat, all common. I mean, a completely disruptive move. And all I just remember asking Ted Elliott was, does he vet? Meaning like, will the wire clear? Will justice let the money come into the United States? Not knowing, right? Because we had heard, Anyways, the money cleared. We took the check, and the rest is history.
I have a good story about that.
But when you are facing an enormous downturn, you have a fiduciary responsibility, David, to your point, to make sure you're well capitalized. But then on the other side, you have a really important fiduciary responsibility to you and all the employees and everybody else to run this thing properly. And you cannot get confused that value and valuation are not the same thing.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
And so the minute you conflate the two and you're like, I'm an X billion-dollar company and start behaving that way, you're dead.
By the way, there's a big difference. I think it's important to note. I know it's been said many times before, but I'll say it again. There's a difference between what your responsibility is as a board and as a fiduciary to the shareholders of that individual company, and what the incentives and motivations are for the big investor that just put all this money into your company for their portfolio as a whole. For their portfolio as a whole, they would rather tell everyone, go hard, go fast, spend as much money as you can, and they hope that 1 out of 10 companies becomes 100x from there. And it's okay if 9 out of 10 die. So they don't care if you die. They care if 1 out of 10 companies goes 100x.
Yep.
You have a different incentive and a different motivation, because if the company dies, your shareholders, you as an entrepreneur, your team lose out. And that tension needs to be understood really clearly by entrepreneurs and executives that are taking money under these conditions. Tiger Global, SoftBank, Coatue, they're great people. There's good people investing there, but the incentive for them is quite different than it is for you.
They're betting on a big winner. Yes.
And do not expect that just because they're betting on a big winner, that they're expecting you will be the big winner.
They're indifferent. As long as they have one go 100x, it's fine.
Doesn't matter what happens to you.
When I met Yuri Milner, he came to a certain poker game, not to play, but just to say hi. And I said to him, I said, you put all that money into Facebook. This was like a week or two after it happened. I said, why didn't you take a board seat? That's never happened. And he looked at me and he goes, Jason Calacanis, you don't need to have a board seat to be influential.
He was right. He became a goat.
I think this guy's going to whack me any minute. It was the most Tony Soprano line I ever heard. You do not need the board seat to be influential. I was like,
what do they use? Compromat?
What? I don't want to know. Plutonium, Compromat. He's got guys. And someday I'll tell the story of the 3-hour lunch I had with Yuri Milner. All right, listen. I don't know if we have anything else to clean up here.
Jussie Smollett. Are we talking about Jussie Smollett, the famous French actor?
Is it Jussie? All right, listen.
The famous French actor, as Dave Chappelle calls him, the famous French actor Jussie Smollett.
All right, listen. I don't even want to go there, but there's a person who pretend this. I mean, I think it's actually worth talking about since we do go to we do talk about race sometimes. There's an actor who faked that he was attacked in a bias attack. He was found guilty of doing this. It's deranged. It's sad.
Okay,
the person has mental issues.
I'm not interested. I'm not interested in the gossipy stories. You guys have a good time. I'll see you guys all later.
Wait. Okay, let's move. What else do we got on the docket? I don't want to lose Friedberg so quickly. I miss Friedberg.
Are you going to come to the party tomorrow?
I want to hug Friedberg's bony body.
Why don't you come to the party tomorrow?
Why don't you come to the party tomorrow?
Coming. What are you? I've been trying. All of a sudden, you're John Lennon.
Boys, I was in. I did the thing with the thing of the film that we talked about.
That's fine, but okay.
And then I was in doing another thing.
All right, that's all good. Okay, so don't show up.
Jake said he was going to go skiing. I said, you should go skiing. Have a good time.
No, I'm showing up for my bestie. This is like the Beatles. And you know what? Chamath's turning into John Lennon. He's going to hang out. He's got some Yoko
we got some buddies there.
He doesn't want to show up.
We'll have Rick and Tease be there.
Sax, you're going?
Guys, you know how far it is from where I live?
I know, because I come to your house to play poker.
Minutes. He comes to your house every week.
I know what it's like.
And I love you for that. And I love you for that.
Yeah.
Are you going to go, Sax? What's the chance Sax shows up? He RSVP'd. Are you going to go, Sax? Should I pick you up on the way?
The RSVP he didn't even do. One of his...
Oh, for Friedberg's holiday party?
Yeah.
Well, I have a conflict.
He came to your birth.
Oh, you have a... Oh, here it is.
Oh, my God.
What is the conflict? You need to drink some Pappy...
Holiday party tomorrow night, so...
Wait, let's go. You're going down to for his party? Can I go? I'll skip Friedberg's for that.
Yeah.
All right, fine. Sorry, Friedberg. We're all out. We're selling you out. Wait, why are you going?
It's all good, besties.
Wait a second. You're picking over Friedberg.
I mean, I've gone to holiday party for like the last 5 years or whatever it is. Maybe more years than that. It's always
Tell
a
us
great
what
party.
it's like. Tell us what
This is a good party.
When you see him, do you look him in the eyes and say, what have you done for me lately?
The two of them haven't looked each other in the eyes.
They never looked in the eyes. They've never looked in the eyes.
That was like an accident. When they first met, they accidentally.
Okay, I got to run.
Wait.
Okay.
We have anything else?
Let's do the Jussie Smollett thing quickly.
No, we do it last because you don't want to talk about it. Better.
No, it is the last thing. We've been going for over an hour.
Nubank IPO was huge.
Who cares?
BuzzFeed IPO was a complete disaster. 80% of people redeemed their SPAC. BuzzFeed is circling the drain. What a disaster. The end. Thank you for tuning in to the All In podcast.
No, that's all we have on the docket today.
Chamath is ready, man.
Lonely Chamath?
Chamath is loose, loosey goosey.
He's a little loosey. He wants to go for
I've been working so freaking hard.
I know. I am wiped out this week. I was traveling all week. I'm exhausted. I got people in town. I got to run.
Okay, we'll let Freeberg go. We'll just go for 5 more minutes. I'm going to go tomorrow, Freeberg. I'm not selling you out like these other two.
I love you, J.
Like Ringo and...
Love you, Freeburgers.
Love you guys. We'll see you later.
Lennon over here. I'm going to be Paul McCartney.
Did I tell you about my poker game on Monday? Oh, my God.
Wait, you had a poker game? Thanks for the invite.
Oh, my God.
You went big?
We lost our minds.
Oh, no.
And there was some...
Is there a Big Al story?
There was some enormous carnage.
Oh.
Wires were initiated today, so everything is settled.
Were you carnaged?
Nope.
Oh,
I did a little bit of this. I did a little chewing of the carcasses.
You're like one of those. Was there a whale and you're just like a great white shark just taking bites after the whale's dead of the blubber?
We quit at 3 a.m. and it was nice.
That is crazy. All right. So for Jussie Smollett, and now that Freeberg's gone.
Yeah, Jussie Smollett.
I mean, it's just very weird. I mean, I think on a race issue, this is like the worst possible thing to happen because we do have instances of Asian hate, of, people being beaten up for the color of their skin, for their sexual preference, whatever it is. And then this person is so mentally deranged that they set up a biased race attack. Apparently, am I correct that he did this in order to get sympathy so that his acting career would do better, or do we not know?
Apparently, he was negotiating his contract, and he
was worried about getting cut from the show.
What?
But he was on the show Empire, and he was worried about getting cut from the show. But look, to me,
so hold on, explain that to me. Yeah. He's worried about getting cut from the show. So the logic jump is, if I had a race attack, they can't fire me.
No, he played the sympathy card.
Sympathy card. I got it. Yeah. I just want to make sure I'm understanding it and I'm not crazy.
He made himself into a cause celeb of the woke left. This is in early 2019 when everyone was worried about, Trump. So he claimed that he was beaten by 2 MAGA, haters who tied a noose around his neck and poured bleach on him. I'm not sure what the bleach was about. I think maybe that was to make him white or something.
He said,
is that what it was?
2 white dudes. Okay. And then at one point, he in the interview when the interrogators or the investigators were pressing, "Are you sure they were white?" He said, "Well, I don't want to be racist. They may have been light." And then it turned out the 2 dudes were black, from Nigeria.
Yeah, he hired them. He hired them and he paid them by check. So this is not like a master criminal.
There's no Lex Luthor.
No. But look, I think this story, what it's really about, is not just a story about one sociopath doing this crazy thing. It's really more a media story. This is about how the media covered it. They loved it. And I think
wall-to-wall news.
Wall-to-wall coverage. And I think this reflects all the worst qualities of the media. Number one, rush to judgment. They immediately bought into the story and they were attacking the Trump administration for creating the hate and the MAGA people. So there was a feeding frenzy. Number 2, there was and this goes with the rush to judgment, they didn't do any fact checking whatsoever, right? Because the story was too good. It fit all their priors, just like the Rolling Stone ivermectin hoax about, the MAGA people, in Oklahoma hospitals or whatever. That story was too good. And Rolling Stone and Rachel Maddow bought
no fact checking,
bought the hoax, hook, line, sinker, because they didn't do the fact checking. And then number 3, no corrections. None of these sources ever apologized, did the mea culpa, issued a correction. There's just an eerie silence coming out of all the sources who pumped the story like crazy.
You have to, Nick, please put it in the show notes. There's got to be a YouTube clip of the Chappelle joke around Jussie Smollett. And the basic joke is like every colored person stayed silent. All the blacks, all the browns. And the punchline of the joke is because we were all like, he's probably did it. Why aren't you defending Jussie Smollett? And the whole point is, he looks kind of guilty to us.
Well, I mean,
it's incredibly funny.
If you let's just play 15 seconds of this, a deep linked to his first interview. I think this is his first full interview. Just play 10 seconds of that, because this is
of Jussie Smollett.
Yeah.
I noticed the rope around my neck and I started screaming. And I said, there's a rope around my neck.
Did you get any kind of description of the attack?
I gave a body description, and I, because I saw this, right here or whatever, but I didn't see, I can't tell you what color their eyes were. I can't tell you. And I did not see anything except the second person I saw running away. And the first person, I saw his stature. I gave the description as best as I could. You have to understand also that it's Chicago in winter. People can wear ski masks and nobody's going to question that.
It's just so deranged. I mean, the poker towels are flying off of him. He's like thinking.
Does this make him a bad actor or a good actor? I just want to know, David, as a producer, are you hiring him now or not?
Yeah, maybe I will hire him. Actually, I think he'll be working pretty cheap.
He finally got his Emmy. Oh my God, sorry, too soon.
But the crazy thing here is that a lot of people, all the liberal elites basically fell for this hook, line, and sinker. President Biden, Vice President Harris,
here's the thing.
Pelosi.
The lesson is,
they all jumped the gun on this and were basically denouncing, they bought into the story. They were denouncing this racist attack and blaming Trump and the administration for it.
I have a new policy. I wait until the court case is over to comment on these crazy things. I don't want to comment on a Twitter. I don't want to like it or retweet it. We have a justice system. If this stuff is hitting the justice system, just let the process happen, because the velocity of social media is such that, and we talk about algorithms all the time, that if something like this happens, it's going to become the number one story and 1 billion people are going to see it. And then there's fallout. And the fallout here is it just divides the country. Everybody shut up and wait.
The same thing happened on the Rittenhouse case, right?
Absolutely. Just
massive rush to judgment. They accused this kid of being a white supremacist attacker who basically like a school shooter. It turned out to be totally false. But, the court systems have been doing an amazing job. When you think about the cases, I think the courts have been on quite a run in, I think, contradistinction to the media who keeps getting it wrong, right? So you think about it. So Derek Chauvin convicted, Jussie Smollett convicted, the 3 killers of Ahmaud Arbery convicted. Okay.
Rightfully so.
But Kyle Rittenhouse, not guilty. Kenneth Walker, not guilty. This was Breonna Taylor's boyfriend who killed a cop when they killed her. Remember when they busted into the apartment? He basically pled his case. He pled self-defense because he didn't know who was shooting at them, and he got off.
No knock warrant. Yeah,
he got off just like Kyle Rittenhouse did. So, people, I think, are jumping the gun on a lot of these cases.
There's actually an enormous amount of justice. America is an incredible country.
We don't get enough credit for that.
That mostly finds a way to get to the right place. Obviously, there are moments where we completely get it wrong. But David, to your point, those are some really powerful examples in modern history with a lot of scrutiny where our peers, American jurors, found the way to get to the right answer.
Yeah. Feels great. Yeah.
Bravo to America. Bravo to those folks.
Good job. Good job, America.
By the way, the Breonna Taylor example is a really wonderful example, and the Ahmaud Arbery thing was really important to me as well. Thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate it.
Well, because I think, when the Rittenhouse verdict came down, a lot of people were saying, well, look, if Kyle Rittenhouse had been black, he wouldn't have gotten this self-defense, this justice. Well, Kenneth Walker, actually, that case was a self-defense case, and he killed a cop.
Not a single article in the mainstream media to basically actually defend Kenneth Walker.
Yeah. And he actually shot a cop, right? And he still got off because when they bust into that apartment, the jury thought it was reasonable.
Very
he
tragic.
Was acting in self-defense.
Very tragic that the officer died, and I'm sorry for their family. Exactly. But I really hope that Kenneth Walker has a really amazing, productive life from here.
Yeah, I mean, and
it's a terrible situation all around.
Probably a lesson of are these no-knock warrants even warranted? Like, what are we doing? Like,
I don't know, but
necessary?
If Kenneth Walker lives a productive life and does good in the world from here, he does a small amount to kind of make up for that injustice of Breonna Taylor and probably, kind of create some positive karma for the family of the officer that passed away. And that's the best that you can do.
It would just be great if, as Americans, we could start looking at these issues and saying, justice is worth pursuing. The truth is worth pursuing. And we're all in it together. The United States, like we talked about today in the economy.
Also, we got it right in places that the elite coasts kind of point to and look down on. We got it right in places like Georgia, in deep parts of Georgia, you know, and I think that that's something for us to also think about. It is a virulent strain of the liberal elite that really do judge the rest of the country for being in a way that is actually not true. They got it right in Kenosha, Georgia, Kentucky, Illinois, just to put it on the record.
We'll see you all next time on the All In Podcast. For the Dictator, Rain Man, and the Queen of Quinoa. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
We'll let your winners ride.
Rain Man, David Sack.
And instead, we open source it to the fans, and they've just gone crazy with it.
Love you, Besties. Queen of Quinoa. Besties are gone.
That is my dog taking a notice in your driveway.
Oh, man.
My haberdasher will meet me at Clinton. We should all just get a room and just have one big huge orgy because they're all just useless. It's like this sexual tension that they just need to release somehow. Wet your beak. Wet your beak.
Your beak.
We need to get merch.
Besties are back.